So today presentation, I'm actually going to talk about what is urban wildlife. I think this presentation series, you are Prasid Devaka also doing some sessions. So definitely he will talk about many things about this urban wildlife. Anyway, I'm talking about the basic concepts of urban wildlife. What is urban wildlife and what are the features of the urban wildlife? And also the causes for the threats, like threatening the environment, and what are the causes from the urban environment that affects the declining of this urban wildlife. And also, as an example for the conservation of urban wildlife, I'm talking about the Colombo wetlands. And again, at the end, I will summarize all the conservation strategies and tools we are using for conserving urban wildlife. So, okay. So what do you mean by the urban wildlife actually? So we are frequently we are going to look at the Singharaja, Kanneliya and the Horton Plains like that. So all of us like to visit those places because we can see plenty of environmental, we can get the mental satisfaction, and also we are like to see the scenic landscapes in those areas. But in urban wildlife, still we can see this scenic beauty if we are managed to engage them properly. Like if we are going to manage, if we are managing this properly, we can see this scenic environment in the cities as well. So what is urban wildlife? Is like the wildlife in areas that dominated or influenced by the built environment. So the best example is the Colombo city. And also in cities, we have to focus on the ecology of the wildlife and also the interactions with wildlife with the human, and also the features of the urban ecosystem. So when we are conserving this urban wildlife, to conserve this thing, we have to focus on the ecology of the wildlife and also the interactions between human and the wildlife, and also the features of these urban wildlife ecosystems. So what are the features of these urban wildlife ecosystems? Basically, when you go to an urbanized environment, you can see buildings, number of peoples and busy cities and impermeable surfaces, like all the buildings are covered with, all the roads covered with the tar, and all the surface is covered with the buildings. So, and also you can see not the native vegetations, but you can see the introduced vegetation. In some spaces, you can see greener areas. We call them greener areas. And in the urban landscapes, we can see all these components in a single landscape with the green area. So these are the features of wildlife. Okay. When you're talking about the urban wildlife, the greener areas, it can be a wetland or a home garden or a cemetery. When you go to Colombo city, actually you can see the golf ground in Colombo. It's again a greener space, and some of the parks, recreational areas, lawns, anything that related to the greener space belongs to the urban wildlife. So, and also when you go to observe this species, you can see there is less number of species richness. When you count the species, you can see number of the species is very low, the richness is very low, and the abundance. Abundance means the number of, the count of the species. If we take the common crow as an example, the house crow, if you are counting the number, that is the abundance. So the low abundance, not the common crow is like a general example I took, but when you take the really the wildlife, specifically, significantly, the number is low. And also these greener spaces, most of the time they are fragmented and degraded habitats. Sometimes they are altered with the human activities, and they are fragmented and degraded habitats. And also you can see among these things, you can see the threatened fauna and flora, and also some of the remaining endemic species. So these are the features of the urban wildlife. For an example, when you take the butterfly diversity, I have given a diagram here. You can see in the city areas, you can see a very low number of butterfly species and also the abundance. And when you go to the rural area, it's like a transformation. And in the suburb, again, you can see less number of butterfly species and abundance, but it's rather higher than the cities. But when you go to the wilderness area, it's actually it's definitely high in numbers, the richness and the abundance. So it's like that. But if we can create the corridors among these habitats, we can create a corridor from the wilderness area to the urbanized areas. Definitely, you will find the the wildlife that are found in the forested areas. You can definitely find in the urban areas. That's what we are going to do, and that's what we are going to talk today. And so here you can see some of the diagrams, and again this is a feature that I'm showing here, the waste and storm water. So you can see when the rain comes, you can see the runoff in the with the natural ground cover in the greener spaces. You can see the runoff is really actually it's like absorbing. The infiltration rate is really high when there is greener cover, rather than we are having the buildings and all the complicated structures. We can see there is a very shallow infiltration rate and also the deep infiltration rate. Here, the shallow infiltration rate means, if you can, the simplest example is you are having a normal well in your home. The well water, you are taking the so in the filtration, the shallow filtration, you get this shallow filtered water in a well, but in a tube well, you get the deep filtered water. So here, if you have the ground cover, it's really high than having a covered surface in the city. So it is, you can see it, and also it affects the water cycle, because if the ground cover is really high, the evaporation rate is, again, it's high. But there is no any ground cover, the greener cover, the evaporation rate is really low. So it affects the water cycle. So ultimately, these alterations will affect the functions of these geometric cycles, right? Okay, and also the temperature, when you take the temperature, air temperature, you can see there is a gradually increasing of the temperature in town areas. It's obvious. And these are actually the features of these urban wildlife areas. Okay, so what are the interactions between human and wildlife? Rather than like we always talking about the environmental services, except the environmental services, actually these are some of the highlighted facts that I'm going to talk. The physical and psychological benefits from the urbanized areas. The greener space, we can get the physical and psychological benefits, like we love to have the bird watching and wildlife photography and art, everything, because we have very peaceful space with the very busy lifestyle. We want to get some relaxation. So we are going for that spaces. And also they provide excellent education opportunities, like what we are doing in Bathagana and the Asaru Park. Those are Colombo wetland areas. We are doing an excellent environment education opportunities we are having there. So we have the sound, like it's actually is a very good benefit from the urban wildlife. And also for the negative facts, some of the host and vectors, there will be reservoirs of the zoonotic diseases like the dengue and many of the rabies like thing. So there will be reservoirs of the zoonotic diseases among these wildlife. And also there will be, like during the human wildlife conflict, there will be property damage. Definitely. So this is the conflict. So these are some interactions we are having with the urban wildlife as human. Okay, so what are the threats for conservation actually? When talking about the urban setup, the first thing is the intense resource use and the habitat loss. Here we are talking about the habitat. When we talk about the habitat loss, we can say there are two factors, like the destruction and the alterations. Sometimes we are destructing all the place, like we are removing all the vegetation, and then the fauna, we are clearing the floral species, and then ultimately the fauna species will go on. And also the alterations. Alteration means we are not completely destructing the habitat, but we are altering things. that again will affect the losing of the habitat, and also again will decline in the species, and also the habitat fragmentation. This is not the destruction, this is comes under the destruction definitely, but during the habitat fragmentation, it will decrease the permeability. Permeability means the tendency of moving from one habitat to another habitat, like within the landscape, you know that the animals are moving. So this is called the permeability. So it will definitely decrease the permeability of animals. And also with the urban wildlife, with the effect of the humans, there are many construction activities going on and many other activities. So the spread of invasive species is really high. These again, you can take as features of the wildlife. So because of this, the increase of invasive species definitely will increase the competition among the animals. Like for an example, if there are house cats, if we increase the population of house cats, definitely there will be a competition. And also because of this is a very simple example. So if they are feeding on a very crucial animal on the food web, definitely there will be like the depredation. Depredation means like this is not the normal predation. During the normal predation, it will balance the ecosystem. They will balance the food chains or the food webs. But depredation is like high predation. So they will definitely decrease the count of the species. Okay, and also the waste production. Waste production comes, the industrial effluents, solid waste and sewage comes under the waste production, and also it happens because of the soil destruction and also air pollution and human wildlife. So these are the threats for the causes for the threats of the conservation of urban wildlife. Okay. This is the most complicated part. So the urban development and the human settlement. When we are talking about the cities, if you don't have a proper urban planning, we can't manage these ecosystems like the greener space. We have to keep our greener space intact, and we have to develop our activity. We have to keep on with our day-to-day activities as well during in the urbanized cities. So you know there is very complicated issues in Colombo city, like the flooding during the monsoon period. So this is actually because of the mismanagement and actually the mismanagement and unplanned urban activities. And also you can see number of habitat loss and fragmentation activities going on inside Colombo. So this is again basically the huge threat for the wildlife, and also the pollution activities. What we are having this pollution is like the introducing contaminants to the environment, natural environment. It could be like the substance like the noise, heat, light, energy, or anything. So again, this is a huge problem in the urbanized cities. So when we're talking about the urban wildlife conservation, there are a number of examples we can see. Like one of the concepts is coupled human and natural systems. The earlier time, one of the best example is the Man and Biosphere program in UNESCO. You know that the Singharaja became one of the Man and Biosphere reserves. So this is a base earlier concept that comes under this coupled human and natural systems. And also there are a number of examples from the worldwide organizations. Like in Singapore, you can see a park connector network. Inside the city, you can see all the organizations are government organizations, like the Urban Development Authority, Environment, Ministry of Environment. All the government bodies are connected to each other to connect the park connector in Singapore. So it's a good example for managing urban wildlife in a sustainable manner. And also in Colombo wetlands, taking the Colombo wetlands to talk widely. So the Ramsar city, the concept of Ramsar city again is a best example for managing wildlife in an urban environment. So I'm going to talk about the Colombo wetlands today. So the Colombo wetland complex, this was actually begins in 2015 with the strategic management plan for the Colombo wetlands. And most of the Colombo wetlands are distributed in Kolonnawa, Madivila, Battagana, Thalawattugoda, Talangama, and all the floodplains area of the Kalini River. This is subjected to recurrent flooding, and also during the monsoon season we get the high level of floods. So with all these activities, there was a plan in 2015 to manage this wetland habitat, and also to plan all these doing a zonation plan, and to protect all this habitat as it is, without reclaiming the wetland habitat, and also they are managing in a sustainable manner to get the benefit for the wildlife and also for the human. So when we're talking about the urban wildlife, this is a good example, because you can use this Colombo wetlands to understand this system. I will come into that. So in 2018, we got the accreditation from the Ramsar as a wetland city. So Colombo city is the first South Asian city to get this declaration out of 16 cities throughout the world. So we got this in 2018. And okay, so now we are going to come to the best part. That is the theory part. Actually, I know you don't like many of the theory. I also don't like, but I want to work in the field. When you work in the field, you will get the understanding about this theory part. Actually, you can't by heart things. When you work in the field, you will automatically get used to it, and you know the best part of the environment. So understanding the urban environment, any of the environment, what you have to understand is the system and the dynamics of the ecosystem. So when you talk about this Colombo wetlands, you can see number of habitats and microhabitats inside the wetlands. Habitats, actually the habitat is where the animals or plant live, and the microhabitat is a specific kind of habitat, miniature habitat, that there is a special condition. The features of this microhabitat is common to all is not common. The microhabitats is unique actually, but in a single habitat, inside a single habitat, you can see number of microhabitats, right? So in this picture, the broad scale, when you talk about the broad scales, you can see the marshy area and the forested area. If you look closely, you can see the microhabitats of a snail or a frog or any kind of caterpillars. So those are the microhabitats you talk about. So we want to understand basic things first. Before developing the concepts for conservation, you have to understand these basic steps. And also, inside an ecosystem, what are the species? You want to do the surveys, regular monitoring, and everything you want to do. And you have to understand the species composition. What are the species inhabiting the area, and the trends of the species? How do they going to fluctuate? For an example, when you talk about the dragonflies normally in Colombo city, you can see the dragonfly population are increasing after the monsoon season. During like October and November, just after the southeast monsoon, you can see a rapid increasing of the population of dragonfly species. And also after the arrival of the migrants like the bee eaters, they will catch the dragonflies, and then gradually the population will decline. That is what you have to understand. What are the trends in population fluctuations? What are the trends in environmental fluctuations, like the environment, like the rainfall patterns, the temperature, and everything you have to understand before conserving and developing plans for managing the urban wildlife in the areas. And also, there are invertebrates and also the vertebrate species. In the wetlands, you can see number of fish species, endemic and native species. Sometimes many of them are invasive species, and amphibians, aquatic reptiles, and sometimes the water birds, like the filter feeders. Especially in the wetlands, you can see the filter feeders like the ducks and the ambush hunters. Ambush hunters mean the egrets, herons, pond herons, like that. And also the migratory snipes you can see in these areas, and also the waders who are feeding on the tiny worms and insects in the water, mudflats. Those are the waders. And also the mammals, especially the mammals. The wetland mammals are the fishing cats and otters, and also you can see in the peripheral area the leaf monkeys. We have the endemic leaf monkey, the purple-faced leaf monkey. We have 4 subspecies in Sri Lanka, and you can see the western subspecies in Colombo City. So, okay, I'm taking my place as a model. So when you go to a habitat, when you go to any kind of habitat, this is a wetland, first you have to specify the habitats. Where are the habitats? Where are the microhabitats? So when we take this as a model, here you can draw a gradient. If you're going to do a survey, you can draw a gradient through the habitat, and you can walk along the gradient. It's like a transect. What do you know? It's a transect, and walking along the transect, you can record the different types of habitat. Here you can see the open water. So any type of, so this is the this is inside middle of the city. You will find number of open water bodies in Colombo City, like the Talangama tank and the Evanna Lake. Those are the open water bodies. And here you will find the open water, and along with the open water body, you can see the riverine areas. These are the habitats. When you come inland, you can see other marshy areas with the woodlands. Inside the woodland, you can see number of plant species, like the Annona glabra is the most prominent in Colombo, the wetlands. It is an invasive species, but however, you can see number of other aquatic plant species. Okay. And also there can be shallow pond areas, canals, and with number of emerging and floating vegetation. Again, some of the areas are covered with grasses and sedges, the reeds and the grasses. අපි කියන තනකොළ සහ පන් විශේෂ. මේකේ තියෙනවා open water body එකක්. ඊට පස්සේ ඒකේ periphery එකේ තියෙන්නේ riverine. ඒ කියන්නේ ගංගා දාර තිබෙන ප්‍රදේශය. ඊට පස්සේ ඇතුළට එනකොට කාෂ්ඨීය ශාක තියෙන woodland එක හම්බ වෙනවා. marshy area. ඊට පස්සේ shallow water ponds හම්බ වෙනවා. grasses හම්බ වෙන තැන් තියෙනවා. grasses and seeds ඒ කියන්නේ තනකොළ සහ තෘණ විශේෂ සහ පන් විශේෂ වැවෙන. Then you will find again the marshes with reed beds. Not there are marshes with wooded trees, and also there will be marshes with reeds and grasses species. So those are 2 different habitats. So first you have to define again you will find among those habitats, you will find the inland area. Like the wetland is it's situated in the connections, like the intermediate zone in the terrestrial and the aquatic ecosystem. So it will be in the intermediate zone. So you will find the inland area and also the low-lying area. So in the inland area, you will definitely find the scrublands. So this is what you have to understand in any of the ecosystem. It will in an urban city, if you are going to assess the biodiversity, first you have to assess the biodiversity. Before developing the conservation plans and strategies, you have to assess the biodiversity first. So that's what we are doing here. So you have to assess the biodiversity. Biodiversity means the species diversity, ecosystem diversity, and the genetic diversity. So with the monitoring methods like the surveys, point count surveys, and camera traps, you can assess the biodiversity and also the ecosystem diversity. So you have to understand this. Then what are the plant species and animal species in a bit area? For an example, in riverine area, you will definitely find the fern species. Ferns, some of the pandanus, the Vataceae, pandana species, and also some of the many aquatic plants. These are the most prominent plant in the riverine area in Battagana. In many of the wetlands like Battagana, you will find this. Lygodium microphyllum is one of the climbing fern. Here you can find. And also, these are the pandana species. This will cover the riverine area. Again, when you come inland, you will find the stagnated water bodies and also the canals. In canals and water bodies, you can see number of other aquatic plants like the Utricularia species. You know the Utricularia is surviving in low nitrogen water with low nitrogen concentration because they are insectivorous plants. So they are fulfilling their nitrogen needs with the nitrogen needs from the insects. So there can be specialized, what do you call this? The specialist, not the generalist. So there can be number of plants that are specialist, and also there can be generalist plant, like if there is a water body, there will be number of generalist plant, like many of them are invasive. And along the river beds, along the canal beds, you will find the senna, atthora කියන ශාක විශේෂය. ඔය වගේ තියෙන habitat එකේ මොනවද composition එක කියන එක. ඒ habitat දැන් අපි හිතමු water body එකක් කියලා. මම water body එක කතා කරොත් එහෙම ඒකේ periphery එකේ තියෙන riverine vegetation එක මොකක්ද? Riverine vegetation එකත් එක්ක ඇතුළට එද්දී අපිට දකින්න පුළුවන් දැන් මේකේ you can see the submerging plant, floating plant, both of them. So these are you have to list down these species, and you have to monitor you have to assess the biodiversity. Again, when you're assessing the plant species, definitely with the plant is decided what are the species are there. So definitely in a wetland, you will find number of bird species like the filter feeders, ambush hunters, kingfishers, and number of raptorial birds. So these are the diversity you can see. And also, when you come to the inland, there will be you can see the changes in the environment, and you can see these number of tree species rather than the submerging plants or imaging floating plants. ඇතුළට එන්න අපිට දක ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා මේ වගේ ශාක විශේෂයෙන්ම තෙත්බිම් වල වැඩෙන ශාක විශේෂම දියමිතෙල්ල, ඊට පස්සේ සමදරා, ඊට පස්සේ තව දැන් කොළඹ wetlands ගත්තොත් එහෙම අපේ තව තියෙනවා there is an threatened plant species, we call this Agonopleptophylla. It is also recorded in only 2 locations in Colombo city. One is the Baddagana, and also one is in Kolonnawa wetland. And only few locations have still recorded. So it is a critically endangered plant. So you can see number of kind of species which are inhibiting the wooded areas. So here what I was talking about this Agonopleptophylla. This is the plant, is a creeper, belongs to Fabaceae family, and number of endemic plants you can see, but the endemicity is really low. It is a feature of the urban wildlife. The endemicity is really low, and also the threatened species, again, it's high. Low. Because of the fragmentation and the habitat loss, many of the threatened and endemic plants are gone, but there will be few endemic and threatened species in the area, but rather than it's really low in numbers. Anyway, you can find in the patches still there are endemic and threatened plants. Okay. These are the threatened species we can find. So conserving threatened species is critical because when it comes to Colombo wetlands, you can see there is no any kind of park network or green space network in Colombo city because all the spaces are fragmented with urbanized areas. But still, you can see as refuge sites, the wetlands, inside the wetlands, you can see the otters and the fishing cats, and also the purple leaf monkeys. These are some threatened animals you can find. These are the sightings of fishing cats, actually. And I will show you some with these signs. Like these are cryptic animals, so you can't easily see those animals. So you want to use some specific methods like the camera traps and signs of the presence of these animals, like the pug marks and scat samples you can observe. Early in the morning, you have to go to the field early in the morning to observe these things. These are the pug marks. When you come to fishing, the cats, you can't see the nails of the among the paws. Indoors, you can see it. Here, the cat, it's a cat paw because you can't see the nails on the paw markings. And the otters. Again, all the pictures, the signs are taken in Baddagana area. The otters are still existing. You can see the signs. And here, these are from the SCAR Foundation, actually. I have to thank Anya Ratnayake for sharing these pictures. This is actually on one day in several times at the same camera trap. You can see there is a fishing cat and also an otter and a porcupine. So these kind of techniques, these are actually tools. So we can monitor the use. We can use camera traps as a tool for monitor the urban wildlife. And this is an interesting observation because I was telling that camera traps are one of the tools and we can monitor urban wildlife. Any of the place we can use this. Here you can see an Eurasian, actually this is in golf ground. This was observed in one of the camera traps set in golf ground. So it's really strange. It's a Eurasian thickney. We haven't actually, there were early records, very years back, there were early records for Eurasian thickney in Colombo, but we thought that Eurasian thickneys were gone. But now we know that with these camera traps observations, we know that still the Eurasian thickneys are still in these urbanized habitats. And also in Badagana, we observed long time back, like 10 or 15 years back, there were records for nightjars in Badagana, but with the alteration and destruction of some of the habitats, because nightjars are nesting on the ground. They are ground nesting birds. So the last year we got some observations with the camera traps, and also some of the security officers are seeing that the nightjars are still there in Badagana. After 10 years, I think this was recorded. So again, this golf ground record of the Eurasian thickney is again a best record for finding these hidden urban wildlife in the area. Here again, the black bittern. Black bittern is, you can see the inside the circle, there is a black bittern. This was taken in Badagana. The black bittern is a very shy bird. You can't see them easily. There are birds, but it's not a common bird. It's an uncommon bird. It's hard to see the black bittern because they are very shy, and also the ruddy-breasted quails. So with the camera traps, you can observe these things that there are birds inside the habitats. So there are interesting facts that these are the tools that we can use to monitor the urban wildlife. When we go to the inland areas, I told you that there are habitats of scrublands and grasses. Again, inside the scrublands and grasses, you can see number of fruiting plants. So why we need fruiting plants? To protect the pollinators. So the pollinators need the pollinators like the insects. Actually, it will protect the insects, like insects needs the nectar and also some of the essential materials from the trees. So to ensure the survival of the pollinators, we want to have these fruiting plants, the nectaring plants, especially the butterflies and also number of other insects. And also with the pollinators, it will increase the fruiting of the trees. You can see number of species like the catacala, valmidi, premna species, and gaduba. ඔය වගේ ගොඩාක් ශාක විශේෂ තියෙනවා මේ pollinatorsලා survive වෙන තැන්වල. So you can see number of species like this. And also the landscaping for wildlife. This is a very crucial factor because during the urbanization, you will alter the habitat or you will destruct the habitat. So the landscaping for butterflies and other insects will be crucial for protecting the pollinators and also to protect the balance of the ecosystem. So it is a good practice for protecting urban wildlife in the urbanized cities. So the landscaping, it will be your own home garden or your office premises, and inside the university you can have some butterfly gardening or an eco-friendly gardening space. And also even in schools, you can establish those things. So it will build a corridor. Actually, I was talking about this from the wilderness area. If you want to take the butterfly species or any kind of other animals to the city areas to attract the animals, we can establish the corridors. So across the areas, for an example, I will say that during the COVID pandemic, just after opening the cities, I observed after the monsoon, like in 2020, during May or June, after the monsoon, I observed fresh leaves of the cinnamon. So once I saw the blue bottle, one of the butterfly species, the blue bottle lay eggs on cinnamon species. Blue bottle කියන සමනලයා මේ කුරුඳු විශේෂය තමයි විතර දාන්නේ cinnamon verum කියන මේ ප්‍රභේදය තියෙනවා කොළඹ වෙට්ලන්ඩ්ස් වල. මේකේ දලු දාන්නේ monsoon එකෙන් පස්සේ තමයි මේ අගස්තු වල දලු දාන්න පටන් ගන්න. එතකොට butterfly population එක මේ වැඩි වෙන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. So I observed in 2020, I observed there are a number of blue bottles observed in the Colombo city. Because normally the blue bottles are forest loving species, but they have crossed the borders during the settling down. They have crossed the borders and they are now gradually establishing in the area. Now we can see in the consecutive seasons, we can see there are 2 or 3 blue bottles are coming to lay the eggs on the cinnamon trees. This is a good trend that then it's not developing a corridor. Actually, it's like the lockdown of the city, but it has automatically developed the corridor. But what we want to do is really establishing the corridor in the middle of the city while having the landscaping for the wildlife. Okay, so conserving wildlife. I was talking about this for conservation, you have to monitor the species counts and the dynamics of the species and also assess the habitats. So for this, the research is essential. Having research is really essential. Like most of the time we are observing about the birds and animals, but in many of the countries in Southeast Asia, Africa and South America, most of the gaps are in the herpetofauna and also in fish and amphibian species. Many of the research are doing in the wilderness area, but not in the cities. So this is a research gap. Actually, you can fill this with your studies. And also we want to understand the trends in habitat diversity, species diversity, and climatic conditions. So talking about the climatic condition, I will comment to that. From gathering all these data, we can have this urban planning. Where to establish the corridors. First, we want to identify where the species are. So then we can establish the corridors, and zoning is a very important thing in conserving the urban wildlife, and also understanding the climatic patterns. When talking about Sri Lanka, we have 3 rainfall methods of getting rain to the island. One is the monsoon and the conventional rains and cyclonic rain. For Colombo city, we are getting the main monsoon in May to September from the southwest monsoon from May to September. And now, actually, this is an intermonsoon. The activation of an intermonsoon is happening during March to April. Soon after May, after April, from May to September, it will activate the southwest monsoon. So after the monsoon period is critical for wetlands, especially the Colombo wetland. So what you want to understand is the rainfall patterns, not only for Colombo, but any of the place you want to understand these patterns, climatic changes. The climatic changes will cause the seasonal variation in habitats. So this is at the same place. This is in Batagana, and this is the same place. You can see the emerging grasses in January. As soon as after the monsoon period, you can see the emerging grasses. And during October, during the monsoon period, the best season to visit the Batagana is the monsoon season. So after October and November, you can see plenty of animals. And then in the beginning of the monsoon season, you can see there are only few grasses and all the grasses are dried out. So it is with these facts, you can observe the seasonal variation. So you have to record them as well. And also another thing you want to understand is ecological succession. The ecological succession, so during the ecological succession, this happens especially in wetlands. අපි කියනවා මේකේ දැන් wetland habitat එක තියෙනවා ගොඩබිම අතික්‍රමණය කරනවා ජල පරිසරය. ඒ කියන්නේ ටික ටික you can see the debris are most of the in wetlands, you know, the anaerobic decomposition is happening. So it's a carbon sink actually. Carbon sequestration is high in the wetlands. ඒ කියන්නේ carbon deposit වෙනවා වැඩි. මේකේ තියෙන්නේ නිර්වායු ශ්වසනය. ඒ කියන්නේ ඇති වෙන මේ කාබනික ද්‍රව්‍ය ඉක්මනින් දි รา පත් වෙන ශීඝ්‍රතාවය ඉතාම අඩුයි. ඒ නිසා මේකේ carbon sink එකක් විතර carbon store කරනවා මෙයා. එතකොට මේක දීර්ඝ කාලීනව සිද්ධ වෙන process එකක්. මේ ecological succession එක කියන දීර්ඝ කාලිකව සිද්ධ වෙන ක්‍රියාවලිය. During the ecological succession it will create the soil. ඒ කියන්නේ wetland එකක soil එක create වෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ මොකද වෙන්නේ? wetland එක ගොඩ වෙන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. soil එක create වෙන නිසා එන්න ගොඩබිම තියෙන පරිසර පද්ධතිය wetland එක පැත්තට එන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. ඒ කියන්නේ wetland එකේ තියෙන species replace කරනවා කාෂ්ඨීය ශාකවලින්. ඕක වෙනවා. This is a natural process, but with the human interventions, like the human interactions, this will accelerate. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ ecological succession එක natural process එකක්. හැබැයි මිනිසුගේ ක්‍රියාකාරකම් නිසා මේක ඉක්මන් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මෙන්න මේ වගේ, so we have to think about these ecological processes as well. So all these have to be considered during developing the management strategies for urban cities. And also managing water resources. Any of the place you can see water resources like the open water, stagnated water, or the flowing water, maybe in the canals or anywhere. You might find these types of water. So with managing, especially in the urban cities, you will find the problems are the solid waste and sewage, and also the invasive species. Removal of invasive species is critical because it will affect the survival of the native species. And also, as we are living in the urbanized cities, for the open water bodies, we are releasing sewage and chemical effluent, sometimes industrial effluent. So there will be frequent algal blooms. මේ තියෙන්නේ මේ දියවන්නාවේ මේ මෑතකදී ඇතිවෙච්ච algal bloom එකක්. So we have to treat those things. We have to take immediate action, otherwise it will cause very damage to the environment. So some of the strategies that we want to use is the green architecture. You know about the green architecture, like having the vertical structures and reusable techniques like the solar power and recycling the water and recycling the materials that we are using. So those are the strategies that we want to practice during the constructions and urban planning and development of residential areas inside the cities. Okay, again, the environmental engineering, again, a very vast area used in the world. Not in Sri Lanka actually. So environmental engineers are the experts. They are integrating with technical knowledge and also with ecological knowledge. They are weaponized with those tools. So this is a very good trend in managing the urban cities while preserving the green spaces. Okay. So here I have summarized there are the first year students of the Open University. I summarized all these, what are the strategies and the tools we are using during the conservation. So we were talking about this, the strategic urban planning and laws and legislations. I forgot to talk about this. For an example, we are subjected to the fauna and flora protection ordinance monitoring by the Wildlife Department and sometimes the Central Environment Authority Acts. There are a number of acts and laws and regulations for the managing and reclamation and doing activities inside the cities, and also declaration of protected areas. For an example, we are some of the Colombo wetland areas are inside the sanctuaries, like the Sri Javardhanapura Cortes Sanctuary and also the Balangila Athidia, like that. So establishing protected area is a must, and also monitoring and doing surveys and establishing refuges and corridors for animals, and environment education and recreation is a good strategy for environment protection in the cities. And you can develop citizen science programs. For an example, the iNaturalist, I think some of them of you are using these things. And also we have to have the relationships between the social groups around the areas, like the socio-economic and ecological structures have to be compatible with each other. So we can use community-based conservation programs. It is a must for managing wildlife in the urban developed areas, because you have to engage the people in various activities like the conservation activities, while giving them the income generation activities sometimes, or the opportunities for study. So we can develop number of socio-economic strategies for conservation of cities wildlife. And also road signages. The signages plays a very crucial role in conserving cities wildlife, and also the environmental engineering methods, and also the vertical structuring and green architecture. So these are the major strategies we are using in the conservation. And also the tools I have listed here, the mapping tools like the ArcView GIS, Google Earth, and some of the online based apps, and also the citizen science apps. We can use those things in the modern world to educate especially the younger generation. So these are the strategies and tools we are using in conservation of cities wildlife. So as a summary, I have to say that this understanding of the effects of the urbanization and on the animal behavior is crucial, because while understanding the habitat diversity and the species diversity is a must. And by those data, we can have the planning process and operational phase. We can have feasibility studies, and while doing a project, we can, while doing an development project, we can have feasibility studies while assessing the value of the ecosystem values and the biodiversity. So we can improve the human and animal coexistence. Then we can design the green space or the parks. Okay, we can protect the existing green space. Then we will have, we can facilitate the human wildlife interactions. Then we can mitigate the biodiversity lost in urban cities. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you so much.
Ms. Narmada, I have a small question.
Yes.
So Ms. Narmada, you said that community engagement is essential for the conservation of urban wildlife. Now, all of this wildlife and the urban areas, the wetlands, are under government purview. But now in universities, we interact with students with different backgrounds. Some people are from faculty of management, faculty of engineering. What can the universities in Sri Lanka do to enhance their green spaces and do something to spread this message to the other people within the university? Because all of these students will become future leaders of the country in their respective fields. So I think it's essential for us not only to have this conservation effort within the zoologists and the botanists, but also to spread it outside so that they will also get the message that these urban wetlands need to be protected. So what are your suggestions? You said that probably we could have these butterfly parks and corridors as such. What are your other suggestions, practical suggestions that we can incorporate within the universities to promote this?
Okay, so it's a good question, because all we are talking about, normally all the time when we are talking about the wildlife, all the people are from the same field. I know that, but it's really hard to get involved in the management field or the IT field. Those are like, there are some people who are having the hobbies of this field, but they are like already in the field, but we want to aware the people, like we just doing the research is not enough. Like the research finding has to be taken into the public. That's what you are talking, I think. And also like involving the public nature education or the conservation activities it's like it's a tricky thing, because you can, like, you have number of societies in your universities, like the Rotaract or the ISEC, any kind of societies. Through the societies you can involve into these activities, like the CSR programs. There are a number of CSR programs doing with the companies, so you can get the sponsorships from the companies. Like if you want to do a ecology based studies or ecology based projects, please write for the sponsors, and you can get the financial support, and then you can involve with the government organization, like we are doing it in Ghana. Like number of management in the students in management faculty, and some of the students from art faculty, law faculty, they are frequently coming to the park, and they are doing number of projects. For example, currently we are having creating nests for birds. So not the wetland birds, but the forest birds we are building up nests. So it's like a kind of a project that we can raise the awareness. So there are a number of, like, the wetland cleanups you can do, not the only the wetland cleanups, like the reforestation programs you can do with the other people. Like they might don't have the field knowledge, but they have the ego to protect the environment. So we can do these things. While having this urban space inside the cities, we can engage those people in different environmental activities. Through the different environmental activities, like having the butterfly garden, even you can do it in your university. So you can get the help from the experts, right? So like those activities, like the cleanups, reforestation activities, and sometimes even the universities and also the sponsor organization can involve school children into this. So you have to build up a network actually. So you have to get the young people should get the priority, and also they have to lead this. So you can have a network to protect these, like there are community-based programs, citizen science. Actually, there is an ongoing project called the Darwin Project in Colombo Wetlands. So from this, we are developing an app. So this app will be used by the public. So they can feed their data, like it's kind of an eBird. In eBird, general public can feed the data. When you are going to a site, you can, in the eBird site, you can feed the data. Like I have seen this bird. If you don't know the bird, you can search the image, you can upload the image, or you can feed the data and you can find the bird species. Like that, they are developing a citizen science app for anybody can use this. So you can feed the data, and so everybody will involve in these things. So now there are a number of strategies you can have, get the involvement of the young generation, especially the university students. And also we can do some workshops for not only for biology students, but also for management and many other field students. They are always coming to the Ghana. We are doing for workshops for them, like the wetland walks, guided nature tours, games and activities we can do with them. So those are the activities we can try out.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, Narmada. I think you have given a lot of suggestions for our young ones, to align with our theme this year. I think we can ask them to, suggest or propose some activities, and then I think we can do in collaboration with you, because our university is also a part of the wetland. It's a wetland. So as you said, that there are lots of things that we can do, and that's why we have selected this theme, because it has been neglected theme, a neglected topic. So yeah, and thank you for enlightening us on this so much.
And also I have to say this, like when you are doing the reforestation programs, if you do want to plant trees, I suggest this. Like you can't plant a dry zone plant in the wet zone. You have to understand this. If you are managing a wetland, you have to make it as it is. You have to keep it as it is. You want to have a forest there. So the wetland should be there. So when you are planning a reforestation program, plan it in a periphery of the rainforest. That is the best place, and select a suitable species. in a wetland, most of the people are like asking for reforesting programs in wetlands. So this is what we want to fill. So many of the people can't understand the setup. So you can know the setup, like I was telling about the habitat diversity, what is the habitat gradient in a particular ecosystem. So I think you got this point. Like if you are doing a reforestation program, choose the site first, what we are going to plant and where we are going to plant. So those things you have to consider. This is applied for the urban wildlife conservation.
Yeah, Narmada. Yeah, we got that point, I think. Thank you very much. And any more questions?
I am Subhadra here. Narmada, you talk about ecological successions, and I think it is a bit destructive to wetlands when you are having ecological successions. Are you taking measures to prevent it?
Yes. Actually, the most of the time we are having this threat with the invasive plants, especially the Annona glabra. Bellata කියන ශාක විශේෂය තමයි මේක invade කරන්න ගොඩක් වෙලාවට. මේකදී අපි so we are taking measures to remove those species, but it is really hard to manage this. Because and sometimes the salvinia, again it's a matter, because salvinia when it grows it supports the ecological succession, so it's really hard to manage this physically. So we were talk with this plant unit at the University of Peradeniya, the plant protection unit. So there is a bug, the biological control of this salvinia, Cryptobugus salvini. So we are going to try these things for salvinia, and also and a good practice is using the water buffaloes, right? For an example, we are still not using this because in some it's hard to find the water, like the miharak. So the best practices we are having this wetland is a good practice is using the water buffaloes to stop these things, because they are having all the they are jamming the mud and they are staying in the mud, they are feeding on the mud. So they will naturally control this ecological succession. So these are the strategies we have to use. And also, actually, we can't totally control this ecological succession because it is a long-term process and it's happening gradually, very slowly. Currently, in Badagana, we don't find any, except the Annona glabra and salvinia growth, we can't see any encroachment of the terrestrial vegetation into water, but still we are removing the grasses, like periodically we have to remove the grasses and sedges in some areas, because we can't depend on the animals. Like some of the, this Pancukula purple swampland, they are feeding on the grasses and the sedges. They are using these plant materials to make this nest. And also, with this seasonal variation, it will dry all this grasses and reeds gradually. And during those periods also, we are removing these things, and we are having a compost production inside the park. So we are also managing the salvinia. We are collecting salvinia and we are producing the compost in the park. So these are the strategies we are trying to control. Actually, we can't stop the succession, but we are trying to control it. But in the natural ecosystem, the wetlands might disappear from this. With the ecological succession, wetlands are like dynamic systems. So you might sometimes in some places you might disappear the wetlands with the time because of this ecological succession.
Thank you, Narmada. And your talk is very interesting. And you're having so many eye-catching slides, and they are very descriptive. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I can, Narmada, we have time for another maybe 2 or 3 questions, very short questions.
Also, I invite to come to Badagana if you want. I will give you a free walk with all this. I can show all the things, and you can have a practical knowledge with me. like identifying the plants and identifying the animal species. Like I told you that the basic data we have to collect before planning the urban wildlife and managing the urban wildlife. We want to have the basic data, like preparing the checklists. So you are welcome to come to the park, and we can learn many things.
That's wonderful, Narmada. And also we would like to invite to our university, because we are also planning to prepare a checklist and get some sensors and counts of our urban wildlife. I think we have not done that. We have records about butterflies and birds, but not overall all animals. So we thought of doing, taking the counts and identifying their habitats this year. And I hope that we can have a collaboration with you in doing some activities. And it's very, yeah, Narmada.
You are doing the surveys, make sure the correct period make sure to select the correct time period of the year. Like for the butterflies, after the June, it is the best time. And for the dragonflies, from the October to May is the best time. Those are the seasonal variations those are the animal species that we can see the seasonal variation. Others are actually here. But again, after the monsoon, the fish and the amphibian population will rise, and the aquatic reptiles. So make sure to start as soon as now the monsoon is starting. So make sure to start immediately.
That's why we will definitely need your expertise on that. And it was very, as Dr. Subhadra mentioned, it was very informative and very interesting. And we were able to understand the concepts very easily. And the slides and everything was very nice. And thank you very much, Narmada. And people are saying that they would like to come to Bedagana. I think in future, we have a field visit to Bedagana. We have not advertised in the future. We have not informed the student about our plan. So I think, but the committee, as the committee, we know that we have a ranger, we will be organizing a field visit to Bedagana. And I think with that, maybe we can wind up the session. So finally, I would like to thank you, Narmada, for despite your busy schedule, for giving us this lecture, wonderful talk, and we learned many things about from your presentation. And we wish you all the best for your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.